Now, what we're looking at here is our club class that we created in class. And sometimes I feel like I'm saying that word repeatedly. But in our club class, if you remember, we put it on the board that we were going to keep track of organizations or clubs. And for each club, we wanted to know the name of the club, its location, its club type, what the fee was, how many members there are, and what the annual budget is. When we look at your park class assignment, and I posted this Word document to Discord, so you should be able to grab it there if you're on Discord. In our assignment, you are supposed to create a class that is very similar to this with some very similar class fields. So in this Word document, I have that assignment copied in. Someone is feedbacking. Can you turn off your audio for me? I'm hearing a TV or something back there in the background. If we can mute ourselves, unless we got something to say. Now, when I'm looking at our assignment, like I said, I see a lot of the same type fields as what we were creating for our club class. And there's a reason for that. We wanted our example to be similar to what the assignment is. Then we saw that in our assignment, it said return a string, compute some things. So we basically were told we were going to need 4 different methods in that class, and that we would need to override our toString. So if we look at what we were thinking about for our club class, and we said, well, we need those 4 same type of methods, we could create methods like these. One that returns a string representing the name of the club, the location and the type of the club, which we were working on last time in class. 2, return a string representing the name of the club, the location, and the annual budget and income, which we'll be getting done today. 3rd, to compute income from fees. And 4th, to compute cost per member. I've gone ahead and assigned a method name to each of these methods that we were given instructions to create. We'll also, of course, override our toString. And in our toString, we need to just return all of the data members, all of the fields for our class with appropriate labels. So based on our output, that's how we'll get everything situated. Now we're going to come back to this when we're ready to build our tester. But for now, we know we need these 4 methods in our class, and we've got to create those. Let's see again where we left off. I'm going to close out this region that shows us our class fields and our properties. And we had created a no-arg constructor where we set up a bunch of default values. We had created a constructor with 3 parameters. We used those 3 parameter values to create the instance of our class for this constructor, and then we used default values for our other fields that were required. We had already created a toString, but we need to modify that because our instructions say that we want to return all of the fields in our toString. And right now, we're just returning a little bit of information that we were working on in class. Now, we had created one method that did a calculation, and we'd called it cost per member. And we said this was going to be the annual budget divided by the number of members. I'm going to look at that Word document, and I see that I decided calc cost would be a better name for that in creating documentation. So I'll change that name. So this will be the first code that we're changing. And again, my computer's so slow, it'll definitely be a delayed reaction for you. Don't let it freak you out. It's a very slow computer. Okay, so we have some other things that we could do here in our toString. Let's fix it up. We know we need to return information for all of the fields in our class from our toString. So we need to add some more code there. Hang on. Here we go. So first, we want to do a return. So we're going to return one great big string from our toString method. And we want to return our club name. But before that, we need a label. that says club :space. So I'm going to start out with return club space, then keep going. Now on my next line, I'm going to kind of try to line up those double quotes. So club name, and then our next field is location. So I'll change this to say location. The next thing that we have is our club type. Then our fee. Our number of members. And notice that as I'm creating this output, I'm using the properties from our class. I'm not using the fields, and that is intentional because in case we're doing anything in our getter to update this data field, we want to run the getter within our class before we return it as output. Sometimes we'll want to use the field, sometimes the actual property. After my number of members, I have my annual budget. And that's my last thing. Now, as I look at my output here, I know that in our assignment, we need to go to a new line in each one. Am I feedbacking, or is that somebody else?
I think you're feedbacking, maybe, unless...
I think a lot of you are not muted. Let's go ahead and mute you. All right. Now, so I want to do a \n. And then I'm going to put that on each line. Just checking the chats and stuff. Make sure anybody doesn't need anything since I muted you. Now, that's going to make it to where every item is on a new line. So my toString is properly formatted. I'm meeting the requirements that I was given that say the toString method should return all the data members with appropriate labels. So that looks pretty good. Now, I need to create my other return methods that are going to return strings or format output. We're going to have print type and print budget. I'll create a new method here. It's not going to be an override, but it is going to return a string. And this one is going to be print type. Now, whenever we create a method, we always have to have our opening and closing parentheses to indicate that we don't have any parameters. And that's a nice thing about working with the class and class data, that we can access our class variables and we don't have to keep passing them as parameters to all of our methods. Now in our print type, we want to return the club name, and our club location. And our type of club. Now, as I look at this, I see a few little differences from that previous one, and that can cause us some trouble, but it's not going to right now as long as we meet our parameters of our output. Now, I want those to go to new lines. As I look up here in our toString again, I think, we had a couple fields that are numeric, and we should format those as currency. I'll go ahead and add that. output them as a string, formatted as currency. And you should have seen that in chapter 4, where they used the toString method to format their string output as currency. Within our toString parameter type, we can specify any sort of different formatting parameter that we would find in chapter 2 for formatting our output. Now, that gives us our print type method. The other method that we need to output things is print budget. Again, it's going to return a string. So to print our budget, they have told us that they need to know the name of the club, and they need to know the location, and the annual budget, and lastly, the annual income. Now we're going to need to create a method to output the annual income. We said in our Word document and in our description that that method was going to be called calc income. So I'll go ahead and put that in there. It's going to be mad at me, right? Because I haven't created that yet. But that method is going to return a decimal value to me, since all my numeric values are decimal. So I'm going to need to format that as a string, as currency. And I believe I need to do the same thing to my budget. Now, once I create my calc income method, that error should go away. I'll do that. It's public. It's going to return a decimal value. Again, it doesn't need any parameters because it's going to be using class fields. It's going to return the fee times the number of members. Now, when I'm doing calculations like this is an area where I really want to use the fields and not the properties. I told you sometimes we would see differences there. But when I'm formatting output, I want to be using the properties to make sure I'm getting any sort of formatting that would be used to be returned to others. But internally within my class, I want to use my data fields to make sure that I'm not doing any sort of formatting, basically. So here I've got my calc income created, and I think that our class is complete because we've created all of the methods that were required: print type, print budget, calc income, calc cost, and we've got our toString. So we're ready to focus on our tester class. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead. So we've got our calculation methods and our print methods. Now we need to put some comments in, and this is just a normal thing. I'm going to go up to the very top of our class and see where we are. A couple of other things we want to do. I'm expanding everything. I'm going to make you crazy. Now go to the top of your class with me, and let's see where we are. Stick with me, and then we'll get you all fixed up. So at the top, we had a comment, and we'd use the 3 slashes so that it was an XML type comment. We said this class defines a club. We have our class fields, all of our properties. Some companies require comments on every property. We won't do that because we'll run out of time. We have our no-R constructor. Now, next we have a constructor that requires 3 parameters. Let's put some comments there. This is going to be a club constructor with 3 parameters. And if I can't type, sorry. And if somebody is looking at our comment, they're going to be seeing the parameters in the IntelliSense right below because they're all listed here. Now, that's the end of our constructors, but we really need one more. Looking at the document and the constructors that you are required to use, we need a constructor that uses all of the fields. So I'm going to create another constructor for our club. It's going to create or use, a string as a parameter for the name, for the location, then a char type for our club type, but it's going to continue on. Some additional parameters that we're going to be needing, let me get to them. We have a decimal that is our fee, and then an integer that is the number of members, and a decimal that is our annual budget. Now I'm going to change these just a little bit. Can you say, what are you doing? Well, we can have our parameter names be the same as our field names, or we can have them be different. I'm just making them different so that you realize they're different fields from different places so that they're meaningful. So we want to set our club name equal to whatever club name was passed to us. Our location, we want to set equal to, again, whatever location was passed to us. Our club type, we're going to get set equal to our C type that was passed. So we always want to make sure that we're setting our class variable, the field that's in our class, equal to the parameter that was passed in the parameter list of our constructor. So no members is in our class, and members was in the parameter list. So if I had that backwards, I would need to fix it. So that takes a fully parameterized constructor, one where all of the data fields are supplied and builds an instance of our class. So let's put a comment on that. Construct a club with all fields as parameters. So we have a longer comment here because we've got all these different parameters, but again, it's keeping track of it for us. So now we have 3 ways to build a club, and these are overloaded constructors where we have one instance where we will use a constructor if nobody sends us any parameters. Another example where we will use this constructor if someone sends us 3 parameters. And lastly, we will use this constructor if somebody sets us all parameters. Now, we don't have a constructor for 4 parameters, so nobody can call our club class using 4 parameters. That's not allowed. We don't have a constructor for that. We have these 3 constructors, and those are the only options that we're offering to people outside of our class. Now, after our constructor, we begin our methods. We have our toString method, our print type, return the name, location, and type of club, and print budget, return the name, location, what else did we have here? Budget and income. So we have different requirements, and so to fill those requirements, we have different methods. Sometimes people want to know what the budget is for one of our clubs, and they ask us to create this kind of output. Sometimes people want to know what type of clubs there are, and they want that type of output. Sometimes people want to know everything about all of the clubs, and so our toString by default returns everything, okay? So nothing really too complicated. We've separated everything down into each individual piece, and each individual piece then can be handled easily. Either we do a calculation and return the answer, or we create a long string of information that we return that has the information that was required. All right, so let's look at our tester. And in our Word document, first, let's look at what we want for output. Now, just like in your assignment, I tried to make this the same so that you can compare in your head and see how you have to interpret things. But we are supposed to create 3 instances of our club class. Now, sometimes people get confused about these instances versus the actual class. We could create an instance of any of these clubs using any of our constructors. This is just the way we were told to do it. So we're going to create a PTO using our 3-parameter constructor. We're going to create FFA using our all-parameter constructor. And the chess club we're going to create without any parameters at all. Then we're going to use 2 properties of our PTO club to set some numeric values. And we're going to update some information on our chess club. We're going to output some information that will be very similar to what you needed to output for your assignment. So let's get our tester going. I'll go ahead and copy these 3 lines. If you have the Word document, you could do that. And let's put them in our tester. So I want to open my tester. Right now in my tester, I have whatever was left over from last time. And it was creating an instance of a default club. So I don't need that. That would confuse my output because it wouldn't be what I want. What I do need are those 3 that I copied from the Word document. Now, when you copy those 3 in, those 3 lines of code, or copy them here, you shouldn't have any errors. If you have any errors, we've got to look and see what's going on. Here's the weird pretty sounds. Okay, so 3 lines of code here that I copied in. Okay, found it. All right, so 3 lines of code that we copied in. We shouldn't have any errors. Our first instance of a club is going to be our parent-teacher organization. And we're creating it with our 3-parameter constructor. Like I said, we're going to say, okay, here's the club name, here is its location, and here's the club type. Now, I was a cheater to copy and paste those, and I really want to type it in because I want you to see what's going on when I do that. Now, IntelliSense is telling me you have 3 options for a club constructor. First of all, option 1, we put the comment, is a default note R constructor. If I click through that, I can see that, oh, your second option is a string that's going to be the name, a string that's the location, and a char that's the type of club. Lastly, I have third option, which is all of the different parameters, and it also includes my comment. So since we included those IntelliSense comments in our class, we're seeing that information as we go to create new instances. So that's very helpful to others, and that's why we want to make sure that we're creating comments and using that correct formatting. Now I'm going to go ahead and retype in this information just to kind of point out to you what's going on there so that you really notice that IntelliSense being so helpful. Now, I can't have two instances of PTO. My club name is just like a variable name, right? It's defining this instance in memory, and I can't have two name the same thing, so I'll delete one of those. Now, as you typed in the information for the FFA club, again, you should see the constructor in IntelliSense showing you what all the different parameters are. Lastly, our chess club doesn't have much information here. We're going to give it some more. So as we create our output that's required for our assignment, sometimes we have to do things in a certain way, and that's the way it can work when we're working with users. Sometimes they want us to do things in a certain way that might not be the easiest or the best, but that's what we have to do. So anyhow, we're going to update our PTO instance, our parent-teacher organization. We finally found out that that fee is $20. This could have come from some sort of online screen or website. In our case, we're hard-coding it in our tester so that we can test our class, because where our input comes from doesn't matter as much as whether our class performs properly. So we're updating our PTO instance to show that it had some sort of revision. Next, for our chess club, we want to change the club name because we took the defaults, and that's really the chess club. We're going to be testing that setter there. Then we're going to set the location of our chess club equal to the media center. That's where they like to hang out, right? And then our chess club type is a char. Remember, we have to use a single quote. So we're going to set that to S for student club. Now, in our output, we have certain requirements, and this is just what we were given for this specific assignment. The same as with your park. At this point now, I could use any of those print methods or the toString to format output for any of these club instances. My code is not tied to any of these instances. My code is separate. My code is available to any of them. For our specific instance, we wanted to output all of the information about the FFA. So I'm going to put that in a console.write line and say, oh, I want everything for FFA. I want to leave my console.read after that so it'll stay on the screen. But let's go ahead and run this right now and see. We should be getting an output for our FFA instance of our club class. It's really slow, huh? So, my console, if you can see it, is showing output for the FFA. It used our toString method, since that's what we specified by not mentioning a method. We went to that default. So I'm seeing my FFA output. The club is FFA. Their location is the Ag building. There is S-type organization. They cost $25. They have 250 members, and their budget is $20,000. So I'm going to say that that looks pretty good. Notice that I'm ready to take this to hypergrade because I've got spaces after my colons and I think that everything is looking good. I do know though that I need to have 2 blank lines before I start the next piece of information because I've been analyzing that required hypergrade output. So I'm going to press enter to end this thing and I'm going to add some more output. First of all, we need 2 blank lines. So I'm going to use a right line with a \n. That'll give me 1 new line because of the \n and another new line because of the right line. Next, I'm going to output information about the chess club. And my user said that they just wanted to know what type of club this is. So I'm going to use the print type method. Because we're calling a method, we have to have an open and close parenthesis after the method name. And that should give me that output. Let's run it and see. I know the investment in time to watch my computer run it is kind of overwhelming, but it'll be better this time, I swear. Oh, look at that, it's so fast. Okay, so here is our stuff. Now we're seeing that we have our 2-string formatted output from our FFA. We have our club type formatted output for our chess club, so it looks good. And I need another couple of blank lines after that. And then the last piece of information that I needed was my budget, and I'm going to use my PTO instance as a test for that. And my print budget, oops, again is a method. So I need an open and close parenthesis after that method name. Now I should be done because I've got all of my output formatted by my class properly in the ways that it was required. And again, notice that that output formatting has nothing to do with the instance of the class. I could do pto.printType. I could do chess.printBudget. I could do ffa.printBudget. I might need to go through and for every club I have, print out the budget information. These methods are separate from the instances. It's just that we are using these instances to test them. Code is separate from our data. Oops, looks like my output there on my income and my budget needs some new lines. Go fix that. There it is, \n. That should look better. Let's try it. So now we see that we were able to use the methods that we created based on our requirements to format the output that was needed based on our requirements. So we don't want to get the two confused, but it can be really confusing when you're looking at stuff at first. So, yes. We're waiting for questions, but that's about it for our quick catch up so that you're ready to get your assignment turned in tomorrow night. I hate that we keep having these snow days and we do need a lot more practice. It's definitely imperative that you be working with your textbook and trying to keep practiced up since we're having so many days off and you're not having to practice all the time. Greg asks, in the test-wise, the information we pass has to be passed in the same way we use the constructor. Yes, if I'm passing a parameter and I'm using that in the same method or in a different method, then that parameter has to be in the same order in the calling as it is in the receiving. So you can't catch me, you can't throw me stuff in the wrong order. I won't be able to catch it correctly. So anytime we're passing things, we can think of it as throwing this information from our main to our club class constructor, and our constructor needs to know how to catch it. So it has to be in the same order. That's why the IntelliSense editor will show you those parameters in order as you type them in so that it can keep you in the right order. So a lot here to think about. This should give you a really, really good template for what you need in your assignment. And I know that some of you have already been working on that and some have a ways to go. So let me know if I can help you in any ways. I'm going to open it up if you have any questions or anything. Now would be the time. You can unmute yourself and ask a question audibly.
Yeah, in the assignment, I set mine up wrong with passing, so that's why mine was messing up. Yeah, she's going to put it on YouTube.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
it
put a
makes
link.
sense. Yeah, I'll put it on YouTube. And any questions, just let me know. Need a lot of practice for
I'll
sure.
also make sure.
Do what, Greg?
I said I was also going to make sure that once you put it on YouTube, I'll put the link to the actual video in the Discord.
Okay.
So.
Great. So you guys let me know if you have any questions, and we'll keep things going somehow in our class, even if we do have too much snow. So good luck.
Is there any way you could upload, like, create a copy of that particular club class you just did? Because the 101 class, I know, doesn't have the same one that you have there because we didn't get it as far.
This is the 101 class. This is what I started with, was the 101 class.
Well, the other day I thought I was with you then because I have some stuff that was missing that you had on there. That's why I was wondering. I was catching it up while you were typing.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll post it.
Okay, thank you.
This one should have started from the 101 class because the 102 class had another method or two that we didn't have yet. So we'll post it. You guys have a great day. Enjoy your snow.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Honey, but I can show you how. Let me bring up our Canvas course. Neva was saying problems with zip files, so let me show you how to extract those properly. And sometimes they're extracted properly, they just get open from the wrong place. I've seen people do it a lot of different ways. It's easy to mess it up because there's a lot of different things in a lot of different places. I'm going to go to our announcements. And we had this club class that was posted after our last class. I'm just going to click on it to download it. And I noticed that I already have it downloaded. So the system is going to add this one to it. That's fine. Once it downloads, and of course I'm using Chrome, you can access things in a lot of different ways depending on what web browser you're using. But I'm going to click on that arrow and choose Show in Folder. And then when I'm looking at it in the folder, I can use the compressed folder tools to extract it and extract all. Or I can right click and extract all. Now, the important thing is, where are you going to put it? Do I want to leave this extracted folder in my downloads, or do I want to go put it in my Visual Studio Projects folder somewhere? I need to know where I'm putting this extracted output. I'm going to put it on my desktop. Now when I extract, I'm going to see a new folder on my desktop. That you won't be able to see, duh. But what's important now is that when I open my project, I have to be sure to open the one that's on the desktop. If Visual Studio, if I just double click on this zip file, and I just keep opening it until I see something that's familiar, and I double click on the solution file, it's going to open Visual Studio, but it's going to be corrupt. The project will not load correctly because the files that are all inside of this folder are all zipped, they're all compressed. So Visual Studio can't read it properly. So make sure you extract and then make sure you open from the extracted location, not the original location where you downloaded the folder. That's still going to be zipped. Does that make sense? Unzip files. I think you guys got it. I'm going to close this thing so that our video doesn't last forever. Thanks.